Thank you so much, Ginny, Nikhilesh, Pooja, and Vitika for joining in the June meetup. It's been a long due, and if you recall the years in the past, we would always meet up on or around the 4th of June, which I would mark as the Readers Club's, celebration of completing X number of years with the Readers Club. And this year, or rather last year, I decided to close Readers Club, not do anything actively. Then I decided to start it all over again because, the Kida gets better of you all the time. So now at this point of time, I have Readers 1.0, which is where all of you are, and 2.0, where all the new people who joined in, for something I just did for free out of a whim are there. And somewhere in the month of July, I'm going to merge it across. So uh, I didn't want to, what do we say? Uh, I'm missing the statement, but didn't want to touch the bee nest and cause more disruption in the process. So we have a legacy group here, and we have a new group there. So somewhere in the month of July, you will see a lot of churning around further, where I'll merge the 1.0 and the 2.0. So it will just become the Readers Club. I am also actively considering removing the word club from the name, uh, also because I connect more with the Readers Academy. So I'm just throwing this out all of for you right now. The Readers Academy. Do you like the sound of it? Do you like it? Like, do you think us as the Readers Academy would be more suiting to what happens inside the Readers Academy of the club? I particularly feel the Readers Club makes it look like exactly like a book club, but there are distinctions to what we do. In book clubs, it's just mostly a book that is read, and at the end of the month, there's a book discussion and nothing more. And I've always felt there's a lot more that we could do as a community, as community driven, I won't say venture, but a participant based community where the participants become co-creators within the community. If people who are reading Wonder and saying Nikita run the show, that's what I eventually want to go there, where readers say, say Nikhilesh, he has been after my life for the last 2.5 years, and he says, I want to make the readers read Born to Run. And I say, yes, go for it. He publicizes, he runs, and he curates everything about the book. So that is where we want to be. But, I'm just throwing it out as an unprocessed thought, but just thinking out loud. The Readers Academy, do you like the sound of it? And just let me know if the readers spelling in that academy, the Readers Academy, should we read ARS or read ERS? Okay. Put it out on the chat. If you want to unmute and say your 2 cents about it, feel free to do so. Okay. So while I wait for that, I'll just move into next bit. The basics, pay attention because our attention is being obliterated. I have read all the books there, and it's just getting darker and darker. I don't say that as a saint. I have my own attention being taken for a toll. Example being, I was making this deck. You will see this is an unfinished deck toward the end. So I was making this deck, and on the back end, I had ESPN Cricket Info on. I love to read cricket matches, okay? And I love to read football matches. But suddenly, Australia were down by 5 wickets. Afghanistan were on top. Maxwell show was on, and I got sidetracked. Why did I get sidetracked? Because on the back side of my slide, there was this ESPN Cricket Info to open in one of the tabs. And when the back of your attention is there somewhere, anytime you feel a slightest of the creative block, slightest of the thought block, your mind would go into diffuse mode. But when the diffuse mode is on and you have something else to catch your attention, that diffuse becomes, effused up. Okay, I'm using a making up a word here, but bottom line being, you have to work really hard to pay attention. And as much as it is my responsibility to keep all of you intrigued through the slide, it is a two-way street. Those who pay attention in this world are bound to grow. Those who don't, they will have someone else grow on their behalf. I don't say this for the behest of the slide, for all of you, for your own goodwill, as well for myself. If I don't pay attention to things around me, I will have my own, uh, professionalism compromise, as you will see in this end of the slide. Take notes. The best way to remember is not by reading. The best way to remember is not by speaking. The best way to remember is not by, finding fancy tools. The best way to remember anything in this world is by writing. And this, you might think you might write by typing, but our brains are, human history goes into centuries. And all through the while, writing has remained, the common find. No one knows when the reading emerged, but everyone knows when writing emerged. When you see his inscriptions on the caves, many years ago, goes, I don't know how far. Yuval Noah Harari Sapiens comes to my mind, but I can't recall the date. But in that, there was a chapter where it talked about emergence of reading and emergence of writing, and reading came lot after writing. In fact, reading came only when in Egypt papyrus as a pulp was getting used to write something on, and then when it was getting written on, it was being read by the emperors. So take notes. There's no sidestepping around it. Take notes by your simple pen and paper. I have my own notebook ready for today's session. Whenever anyone will ask any question, I will address it. If then something to remember, I'll, make note of it. Okay, I'm just going through the chat. Club sounds a bit more informal and right. Yeah, all right, Shini. I'm not. Yeah, it sounds more informal, but just dilutes. Readers Academy sounds good with EARS. Okay, Readers Academy sounds awesome. Definitely more than a reading club. Okay, Academy for Readers is also a good idea. Thanks, Sadanand. Thank you everyone for sharing your 2 cents there. All right. um Interactive chat and reaction emojis. So I know we are here on a Sunday. I'm going to give every one of you an opportunity to speak, but if while I'm speaking you have something burning to ask, you can put on the chat as well, and I'll come to it just like I did a few seconds ago. Use reaction emojis as well, so I don't see just my own face there. When every time someone sends a emoji, the react button, I can see that, so I can see, okay, it's working. Last but not the least, the basic stuff. Have your Google Calendar ready. If you're on iPhone, let me just tell this to you. After 2 years of trying to use iPhone and not figuring it out anything about it, I have conclusively I can conclusively give a statement that Apple Calendar sucks big time, horrendously big time. And unless they rip off everything from Google Calendar, they will continue to suck big time. So if you're on iPhone, do yourself a favor, link your Apple Calendar to the Google Calendar and run everything through a Google Calendar. If you're on Android, congratulations. There are some things on Android which are very good, except for the privacy. Make the use of the other side of good side of Android, that is Google Calendar. I'm not saying put everything of your life in a Google Calendar. If you remember slides of 2021 and 2022, I used to do that. The entire day calendar was chock a block. I have changed. I don't set much stuff in the calendar except for the bare minimum. Because every time I felt, if I block my calendar entirely, it just works other way around for me. I get more scared and fearful of the day. So set up a recurring event, just no brainer. If you're on simple steps, you go to click an event, set the date, whatever time works for you. Uh, I have a breakthrough realization that I had 11:30 p.m. last night. I wrote about it. I'm going to share this across to you in 2 slides from now, which, if you recall, the 5 zones of reading, the concept I talk about, there's a big major upgrade that happened last night. So you'll get to hear it first time. I will also cascade that information to the Readers 2.0 after this session. So just set up a reminder, let it remind you every day. What's the worst that will happen? You will not read for 3 or 4 days, but you will be then compelled by technology to, hey, come on, turn a page. You can set calendar. You can set a note for yourself. Read as if your life depends on it. Honestly, read because your life depends on it is a much grammatical appropriate sentence. So you know what? Let me give all of you 1 minute to do this. Okay. Even if you have it there, great. If you do not have it, I won't ask who does not have it. I'll give all of you 1 minute to quickly make a Google Calendar placeholder. It will take just 1 minute. And if you're watching this recording, yeah, take your 1 minute and record it right away. I'm also setting a placeholder for myself, and that is for fiction, because I've just missed out on reading a wonderful book which other readers have. And there's no one to be blamed for it other than me. Okay. Funnily enough, uh, as how many of you are reading Wonder here? Readers Academy. Uh, so how many of you are reading Wonder right now? Put it on the chat. I think Nikhilesh is. I think uh, I'm not sure who else is reading Wonder. Let me put on the chat as well. Who is reading Wonder? So, Wonder is a wonderful book, pun intended, and truly mean by it. And Nikita ran the entire show with book. She said with the idea that I want to run fiction books in the readers club. I said, go own it, do everything that you want to do there. And next weekend, she will be running a session on the end of the book discussion on Wonder. And somewhere this week, I was scratching my head thinking, why did I not read Wonder? And it comes from a deep systemic problem I have, which is not really reading fiction. Fiction in the night really coincides with my football based reading slash watching slash, you know, hunger to know about football. And talking about previous Saturday, I, you know, I had I won't say breakdown, but a breakthrough moment where I said, This is it. I need to arrest the time I'm spending on football." You will be shocked, surprised to note, and there is a pun there for anyone who follows football deeply. On an average basis, I read about football for 90 minutes in a day. And on Saturdays, I would drive for 1.5 hours, 45 minutes to 40 minutes fro, for playing 1 hour of football on a 5x5 field. So, and there are many more things about football. Thank God Manchester United is going through a shit phase. No, so excuse for the French, but uh, thankfully for that, I'm not watching that much of Manchester United matches, and that is helping me save my night sleep because most of the matches happen at 12:30 a.m. And I am preferring sleep. Uh, but last week I decided to start working on it, and you'll see good stuff emerge where I start reading a lot more books, because 90 minutes spent on football is BS. Each of us have our own vices, and we need to arrest the vice before the vice becomes better of us. I've spent, I don't know, a decade in becoming a slave of football, so much so that I'm a consumer. I don't curate football articles. None of you would have read anything related to football. I'm not a football commentator. I don't run a football Instagram group as well. Some of you remember, I did think about running an OA football show, but it ran into rough weather because I realized there's nothing to do with football in my life. So that's a very, very, very wrong path to go on. It actually sidetracked me from the Readers Club when I should have put a lot more efforts into scaling it up back in 2021. So Yeah, no, if I don't want to consume so much because there are so many books. You'll see my if I get an opportunity to take my phone out, you'll see so many books pending to be read. Nevertheless, point is we are going to arrest our own vices. I am beginning to arrest. If you have your own vices where you end up reading about some content for no good reason, or if you end up reading too much of self-help content or educational content on social media websites, put it out on the chat. Sometimes, reading those low calorie content doesn't do us much favor, except for maybe occasional LinkedIn readings, Instagram based content scrolling helps sometimes, but most of the times it makes you a bigger consumer than doing something about it, becoming a curator or a creator around it. In today's meetup, 5 zones of reading, a big update there. Habit spiral. I want to know where are you in this habit spiral? There is where we'll use chat a lot. The greatest loop. What are you doing about it? Common errors readers make. That is an unfinished slide. Star framework. Just a refresher. Processing of your reading. Another refresher. And upcoming books. All right. This is where I have a big update. Raise your hand. Put on the chat that you know about this 5 zones of reading. You recall going through this 5 zones of reading in previous refresher sessions, previous interactions. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. Let's see on the chat who recalls this. If nobody recalls this, that would be a reflection for me. Okay, I'm assuming no one knows this, so let me give this a full-fledged intro. 5 zones of reading. I can clearly define this as one, that you read at the start of the day. Two, uh, thank you, Jeannie, for saving me the blushes. At least one person recalls this, and maybe one person only watched that video. I should see the YouTube content analytics on that one. One is start of the day reading. The other is transitioning from, X to Y. You have X and Y to you. At this point of time, all of you are in X mode. And what is this X mode? This is personal self. What is the Y mode I'm talking about? Professional self. I believe most of you, or maybe all of you, are working in an organization or running an organization. That is where your professional self takes center stage. Uh, Midday is the zone number 3. Midday does not necessarily mean 12 o'clock, although we are fast approaching that. Midday is anything from 11 o'clock all the way to 5, 6 o'clock, considering you work on normal time zones, which is 9 to 6. Transition from Y to X is zone number 4, which is you're letting go of a professional self and becoming a personal self. If you're so, and last but not least, end of the day, that is zone number 5. Zone number 1, very few readers would read their books at that point of time. Very few. Uh, those who do, you have a big breakthrough realization that I had last night. Most of the readers try to read towards the end of the day. That is zone number 5. They have, completed their day, and now amongst all the priorities taken care of, priority 1, 2, 3, 4, number 10 is reading that you come on to. Maybe you're hardwired to read at the end of the day, but if you recall all of our sessions previously, end of the day is a precarious zone. Precarious zone because if you are extremely inspired by what you read that day, two things will happen. Either your sleep will get impacted because your mind is suddenly so charged up, you're so energized. You might, think, let me do something about it. You might start working onto it. You might, if you have a writing inspiration, you might start writing. You have further reading inspiration, you might start reading. You have a workout inspiration, you might start even doing a workout. But within a half an hour, the rest of that inspiration and motivation will fizzle away because sleep pressure would have built to such an extent that you will start yawning and eventually going off to sleep. So what happened to that great burst of inspiration? Lasted not more than an hour and a half, and you ruin the sleep onset in the process, thus having a poor night of sleep. The second thing that would happen is you will say, all right, I am inspired. Let me go off to sleep and I will look at it tomorrow. And as is case with all things life, that tomorrow seldom arrives. End of the day, zone number five is dangerous for non-fiction reading. I would go to the extent of, as I said, it's one of my vices. I spend a lot of time reading football, which is again a kind of a non-fiction content, but it doesn't really do any favor to you. Even if I try to open a book at night, by the time it's morning, I would have forgotten it because there is this thing called Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. This is your research point as well. Go and do your own research around it. Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. This is the most uh, powerful research done in the science of memory. You will, by the time you wake up, you would have forgotten it. Your brain would have reset it because your brain would not have had enough exposure to that knowledge for a long duration of for the entire day that it would remember it. It will just simply delete it. um, Transition from X to Y essentially is your commute time, or if you're working from home, when you open your professional laptop, and the other one is the same way. When you're commuting to office or back office, that is a pretty good zone to read. Many people will say, my eyesight will get damaged if I try to read in a car. Guess what? What do you do alternatively? And I'm not accusing anyone. We all, I am also guilty of it. If we don't open a book while reading, while commuting, we open a phone. And guess what is the character size of the alphabets on your phone compared to the alphabet size on the book? Smaller. And now you have additional exposure to the screen as well. So maybe nighttime, I'm not saying that open a book because there's darkness, you use a phone torch. Be wise about it. You can then use a commute from home to office. That is zone number two to do is. So zone number three essentially is midday. If you're in office, okay, or if you're working from home, uh, you have so many pockets of time where you could use 15 minutes, block it in your office calendar to take a water break, take a book along. Afternoon lunch, you just had it, just after lunch or just before lunch, give your food for thought to your brain as well, as much as you give food to your stomach. So evening time, there is this coffee time. If you're working from home, you have this chai coffee time. Working from office, you go along with your colleagues. Yeah, go along with your colleagues, but find a way to sneak out just a 5 minute reading session. 5 minute reading session gets you 2 pages done. Is more likely to inspire you to open the book in the remainder of the day to conform. But you have to work hard on finding your zone. The best zone is start of the day where, and I don't say just when you wake up, because when you wake up, your mind is still not fully activated. So you have to wait for at least 15-20 minutes to reach that activation zone. You might have a workout, you might have a writing session, you might have your more meditation, you might have uh, your lunch and food to make for your kids. You manage that out across. If you realize that there's no time at the start of the day, forget zone one. Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4 exists. The one big realization I had yesterday with Zone 5 is a pressure that gets built up. Pressure not because of reading, pressure because of being in the Readers Academy. Let me just use Academy here in the basis on on the basis of the chat. You are in the Readers Academy, and every day there is a guided reading program of sorts going on where you are reading a certain book. Learn like a pro reader. Supposing that you have not read in the entire of the day, a small pressure starts building up in your brain, which says, I have to read X number of pages. I did not read those Y number of pages previous day. Now Y plus X, around 40 pages, 20 pages. Suddenly there is pressure on the back of your head. Now this pressure works for some habits, especially writing. I had this realization at 11:30 in the night because one of the writing group I am a part of would is going with the principle that if you don't write on a certain day, you will be kicked out of it. So I had fear plus pressure that if I don't write in next half an hour, I will be kicked out from the group, and that is day 8. I don't want to be kicked out from this group. India have just completed the match against Bangladesh. I feel excited. I feel yeah, I have another hour to go before I can fall asleep. Let me quickly start writing. So the fear plus pressure works on certain habits. Maybe it works on workout as well. But the one habit where it becomes counterproductive is reading, because you need to read with a clear mind. You need to read with a calm mind, because reading on its own makes your brain work at many notches above than it's your normal way. Suddenly you're reading, you might think of a memory. Suddenly you're reading, you might have aha moment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something like this has happened at work or at personal life. The brain is already doing the thinking there. While you might realize it or not, the brain is working at 2x or 3x of its normal capacity. And if there is pressure that I have to read this number of portion, these number of pages, you are likely to not read, especially when this is end of the day. I'm going to pause and make you all reflect on this. Number of times you might have not read on a certain day, and then that repeating and that repeating. Suddenly, even the best of the readers are away from the scene for 4 or 5 days running and not to be seen. And when I say best of the readers, many of you are already here in the group in this session. And there's so many other readers who, in spite of their best intention, best efforts, most dedication, start falling off the grid. And unfortunately, my bandwidth is such that I can't reach out to you, every one of you, like a DM. Hey, X, you did not read for the last 2, 3 days. Hey, Y, you did not read for the last one day. Any challenges that you faced? And I should do this. Just before this session, I made a decision that I'm going to hire a community manager as an intern for a part-time basis, no matter how much money it cost me, because I can't do this job of following up personally, but I can make someone else's job of following up personally, so that the readers don't fall off the grid. So this realization that when the pressure starts kicking in, the entire format of guided reading programs, the entire intent of the Readers Academy falls apart. So I've not processed this really well, so it's coming in very, very crude words, but this is my realization. Help me know if this is something that you have felt. If this pressure that starts building up, that hey, I have to read these number pages, stops you from reading on that particular day or makes you go fall off the grid. Use the chat button, or if you feel like, you can unmute and share your 2 cents on this pressure element causing you to stop reading on a particular day. And then only if you can, complete that pile up. Okay.
Hi, Aniket. Ritika here. Maybe if I can speak.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so completely agree with that point of fifth zone. Um, I am absolutely not able to read in that particular zone because, first of all, there are multiple priorities which take away the entire day. And then when I'm in that particular zone, it is more towards taking thinking from the next day perspective. What are the things which needs to be done tomorrow? So definitely I missed on that particular day reading anything. So my preferred slot is definitely the first one, the zone one, wherein after completing all the tasks, sending my kid to school, that is the time which I reserve for myself to read. So completely echo with what you said. And one thing which is also difficult is what you mentioned about reading during the tea breaks in office. It it at least will not work for me because switching from the work to reading the book will be really really difficult, but maybe it can work for other people who are coding and they want to take a break and then switch to reading a book. But definitely the zone one works perfectly well for me.
Thank you, Vitika, for your absolute honesty there. Reading during the chai break, doesn't work. So what if you're reading along with the colleagues, forget it, because your colleagues are going to give you a lot of stick for it. But the way I do it, and I have built a reputation at work, not a good reputation. I've become that book reading guy stuff because of my posts on LinkedIn. So my boss, and he really gives me a lot of stick for reading books. Definitely says don't cite a book right now, even before I've said any word. So I use this moment where I have already had my tea in advance. I want to have this tea on my own. I don't want to go out and more to along with the colleagues. So I do sneak out for a 5 to 10 minute personal tea session, and there I'm sipping a cup of tea and reading a book unashamedly in the common area. So if someone sees, I don't care about it because what I'm getting from that cup of tea is not only just refreshing and the caffeine, but also the insight from a book. I mean, sometimes that really works if I'm reading a specific book, which in a not so serious manner, but it has some implications that work. So again, the bottom line is not what Aniket is doing, you have to replicate it. Not at all. What I am doing might work for in some capacity to Vitika, might work in some capacity to Ritika, might work in some capacity to Pooja, might work in some capacity for Shobit. You know, do what works best for you. You know, experiment, try. But the worst thing is not giving it a try. Thinking that, yeah, it's not going to work for me. Yeah. This, when you start thinking it's not going to work for me, you've already made the verdict for yourself. Yes, Pooja, I'm going to put you on. Yeah, you can unmute and share your opinion.
Yeah, hi Aniket and hi everyone. Yeah, I was just thinking and I thought to keep myself in every zone and relate to it because I think I've tried more or less most of the zones, if not all. Uh, and I would say, yeah, the morning one works best for me as well. Okay. The reason is, of course, start of the day, your brain is at its best. And when I say start of the day, I think it's all more in terms of, my kid has gone to school. I'm with my cup of tea. I think that is a time best for me. Uh, I can never attempt to read while traveling, Aniket. I'm not that person who can either read or see a lot of phone as well. Okay. Vitika knows why. Yeah, I have this motion sickness.
Yeah.
So, I cannot attempt to read then. Uh, Tea breaks also, I think no, because for me personally, uh, tea break is a time where I'm taking a moment out of the work to just bond with my colleagues somewhere on a lighter note. So I would not give that moment to anything else. And then, of course, end of the day, I have tried a lot. I remember, Aniket, during COVID, it used to work. End of the day, I used to like ending the day by reading the book, a peaceful or better sleep. But I think once the office routine started and then getting up early morning again for school and all that. So coming back to, in a nutshell, I think morning, yeah, the start of the day. If I read or else I've missed and then I go to the next day.
Yeah. Thank you, Pooja, for sharing your 2 cents there. That made me remember uh, when you're commuting, and I know many of us have motion sickness as well. I know this personally because my wife also has this motion sickness. So she doesn't definitely doesn't agree with any of my advices of reading in the car. I do read in the car a lot. So again, that comes from very personal opinion. But this is where if you close your eyes and put on an audiobook, same audiobook that you're reading, it could do a lot of wonders. I have been doing this for last 2 years now, listening to the same audiobook, reading it at towards the end of the day or on the weekends. So I make rapid progress with the book. I did this for the first time with Sapiens, and with Sapiens, I can't, I don't know why I experimented this and I've never gone back to it. But with Sapiens, I would listen to an audiobook in similar linear manner, start to end. But then when I would open the book towards the end of the day or maybe next day, I would go from end to the front of the chapter. For some reason, it really worked for me on Sapiens, and for some reason, I never experimented like that ever after. Uh, but it's all very subjective. But you can make use of commute as well to listen to an audiobook. One big disclaimer with audiobook: people overdo audiobooks like anything. And when I say overdo, if the commute is 1.5 hour, they listen for the 1.5 hour. They don't change their behavior at the time that they should. And the time for changing that behavior is around that 15 to 20-minute mark. Because by that time, you've already had so much information bombarded onto you by an audiobook that you have seldom had an opportunity to think. And what is reading without the thinking? Nothing. It is like packet of chips, that Lay's packet where you will think it's very nice, But at the end of it, there's just one packet of chips inside the 10 rupees packet. So you might end up having just one slice of chip by a very long, elongated audiobook session. So if you are trying to experiment that, you like this concept of reading and listening to the same book, not at the same time, guys. I have a lot of people who say that I want to read and I listen to an audiobook at the same time. You are bombarding your, memory, your brain like anything when you try to do so. Listening, reading at the same time, your neurons are in a overutilized mode. And it might work on few days, it might work for a few months, but there's a cook up moment that will come very soon. I tried this and I really had a headache within the first session. And I had a headache because I was trying to listen and read at the same time. Didn't work. So I've never done that ever after. Knowing very well that it's just not going to work for me. It works for you, keep doing. I've learned this, that with reading, everyone has an opinion, everyone has their own 2 cents with it, which is where it's not a unique mode category. So what works for you might not work for the other. So my brain might have got cooked up in one audiobook listening and reading session, but maybe not for you. Yes, Sadanand, let me unmute you and go ahead.
Yeah, so I go for cycling,
Hmm.
and while I go for cycling, I listen to audiobooks. So it works very well for me, and I I love doing it during my cycling. But at the same time, I understand what you're saying, that there's a lot of information that is being shared in that book. But if you can augment with actual reading, that helps you remind the things. Like, for example, I'm reading the same book, and I'm also reading the same book. It helps you remind what has been discussed or talked about in that book. So that is how it helps me. So
Okay.
that's my thoughts on it.
Thanks, Sadanand. I know all of you know me very well here, so I will just say this across. When you're cycling, you are already in the danger zone. Uh, Okay. I'll take a exception here. Uh, when you're cycling, you're already in the danger zone. Pune and roads have already got a bad reputation, and not just for what happened a month ago. But if you're cycling at 6 in the morning, there's just no signals working. So your attention is much, 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 much needed on the road itself. Whether you're listening to music, whether you're listening to an audiobook, you need to be a little bit wiser about where you're using it. And if you think, yeah, I want to listen to an audiobook, again, that's your personal preference, but be cognizant of where you're listening it across. And is your attention half on the road and half on the audiobook? Then your attention is already half there. What are you really gaining by half attention? You could remove the audiobook, unplug the earphones, just experience the nature. Not just for the dangers lurking around you, but for the nature itself, the sound of the birds at 6 in the morning, the rising sun, the serene, pristine peace that you might get when the world has not even woken up. Think of this. And this is where I want you to think, not just for Sadanand here. I know I'm giving him a tell off, which I might regret later on, but it just comes from, this feeling that when we are driving, especially a two-wheeler, and I see this in Pune a lot. I've not seen this in any people no have no helmets and have their headphones on, listening to music or talking all the while, and then driving like sitting ducks. So please be a little bit wiser of when you're listening to audiobooks as well. If you still go ahead and do so, make it for a small burst of period so that the remainder of your cycling is full of thoughts and ideas that would come because a small sprint of listening session. Make so apologies for that if didn't mean to hurt your intentions, because shared it with best confidence. But I have to just say something which really personally matters to me a lot. So okay,
Thank you. Thank you
let
so
me just
much.
go into this bit. I want to ask all of you, where do you find yourself in the habit spiral? uh when we are beginning a habit, when we are a beginner, the best thing to aim for is 15 to 20 minutes. Anything more is just a big difference from what you were today and what you were going to be tomorrow. And you might start doing this for a while, but suddenly there's a big, big leap that you made. Sometimes works, but most of the time it doesn't. One of the biggest areas where it doesn't work is gyms and workouts. For a very small uh, subset of audience, certainly going to a gym of 1 hour duration or maybe more works for them. But for the 95% of the people who sign up to a gym membership on the 1st of January, they are no longer to be seen after the 1st of March. And one of the reasons for that is because they really try to grow in leaps. For some people, as I said, leap of faith, such big giant leap works. Maybe they have a different motivation for doing so. But for most, the growing comes in form of spirals. So if you're building a reading habit, one of the things that you need to look and remember is grow in spirals. Uh, and I know many of you are here from 2020, 2019, 2021, 2022. Find yourself in the spiral. Your spiral could be X, Y, Z or A, B, C, D, E, F. Or you might be in loop F, where you read for more than 2 hours now. Great. But for you, don't compare your someone else's 2 hour with your 15, 20 minutes. You are in that spiral. So I want to know from you, where are you in the spiral? This year, I'm in the beginner. So uh, wherever, if you find yourself in spiral X, focus on how you can go from X to Y. If you're in Y, how can you go in Y to Z? So you grow in spirals. But one disclaimer, don't make reading sessions become one continuous hour sessions. Because reading is a very focused, concentrated activity. Take multiple sessions spread across the day if it works for you. You can read for 30, 40 minutes in one stretch, perfect. But don't try to go, 2, 3 hours unless it works for you. For most of people who are not in academics, who are not a professor, who are not just doing reading for a full-time job, continuous reading for 2, 3 hours won't do them much favor, because you only did the reading part. You did not close the greatest loop. We quickly come on to this. You have to do beyond the reading, which is where reading is not a sexy thing. Reading is a boring thing because there's so much work to be done after the reading. While with writing, you have a write-up that you can say that, hey, in these 15, 20 minutes, I wrote. So that's sexy thing. Workout, you have that sweat birds that keep bursting up. You feel good. You are suddenly energized with workouts. You are going to feel, that's the why they are so appealing. Reading is not appealing because you have so much work to do even after the reading bit. So I think with the inputs that I've received, I think I should go create more spirals here. X, Y, Z should get replaced with A, B, C, D, E. So that reflects the spiral that it should be. I downloaded that image. I think it's best that I create one image uh, and make it more personalized. Now, I want to ask all of you, what are you doing about the greatest loop? What are you doing after the reading? Where are the TWS from this? Uh, this is where I also had a realization with football. Uh, I'm not thinking, yeah, I might think a lot about football, but where am I writing about football? Am I writing for Sports Kida? Am I writing for ESPN? Am I writing for them or that? No. Am I speaking about football somewhere? Am I running a podcast somewhere? Am I going to a fan panel somewhere? No. When the writing and speaking is not existing, why do I need to do so much of reading about it? So that is where I decided to really cut the group. I have the sticky note in front of me every time. And I'm using these visual reminders every day. Negate reading. I'm not saying eliminate reading. Negate reading, eliminate playing, rethink FPL. And there are just 3 points that I've written down for myself. Why I'm saying negate reading and not eliminate reading? Because drastic steps does not work for anyone. In fact, it creates a bigger withdrawal symptom, and I might end up going more than 90 minutes into reading because I just could not deal with it. So negate and then eliminate. Okay. So reduce, negate, whichever way you look at it. So I want to ask from all of you, where are you in this loop for reading? Are you complete? You're reading. Are you thinking about it? Are you writing about it somewhere? Maybe on a social media post, maybe on a LinkedIn, just a thought, maybe on Instagram, maybe on your own personal blog. I have a big bias against personal blogs because uh, if no one is reading or writing, then you are going to stop doing it in very, very short span of time. And if you don't have to make people go to a X site when we can naturally find audience there. So that is where social media channels could be a great portal to throw your writing, throw it out for the universe to read. If someone reads, great. No one reads, great. But don't keep the expectation there. What are you doing about with writing? Are you speaking about it? Are you telling one of your family members at home that, hey, today I read something like this? Are you saying to any of your good colleague or a good friend that, hey, I read something like this? Are you sharing something that you found very, very amazing, that one of your friend could benefit from it? Just take a photo and share it across. If you found it beneficial, just take a photo and put it on the chat. One of the best readers out there, who's 100 times better than who I am, even though he has his own, challenges and vices, is Santosh Sali. Any good information he comes across, he just forwards it to every reading group he is a member of. He runs one of his own group where a lot of people have joined in, more than 150 people, I think. He knows most of them by at least direct chats or something. And he's also in the Readers Club. He just shares. And he is part of some other WhatsApp groups as well. And he does not stop sharing. Yeah, for him, he overdoes it. But point is, you can always take the best when you speak about it. Speaking does not mean in literal sense. Sharing it across, sharing it on social media, speaking about it on social media. So many content creators today, those standout ones. I know this guy, Sahil Bloom. Sahil Bloom is a standout guy. He has big audience. Maybe a newsletter audience of 720K plus. Okay, and that's big. And one of the things he does is he curates his reading and presents his own analysis to it. And that is something I am also not doing. That is something most of you are also not doing. But if we were to do it, then really sky is the limit. So read and think only won't work. Again, Vitika. Writing, great. Let your reading feed the writing. Then your writing will be fed by reading. So eventually you'll start going through the loop. So close this greatest loop and you will start seeing really good stuff emerge out of it. You can let your spouse know that every day, whatever I read, I'm just going to say one or two sentences to it. They, being your spouse, will do two great things for you. They'll say yes. Whether they listen or just nod their head, that's not your job. They became your accountability partners. You just threw it out. But just the virtue of you saying those two pointers is essentially distillation of what you read each day. And this starts building up. This starts building up those repetitions and you'll start, remembering a lot better of what you read. So you can do this in zone 5. Instead of reading, share, speak, tell someone, curate, write, because writing works a lot better under pressure. So you read, heard something in the day, write. So writing and speaking can really work a lot better in the night. Not to say writing does not work in the morning. Writing also works great in the morning. I personally find my writing is a lot better in the morning. In the evening, when I write, there's a lot of grammatical errors, even in the spelling. Yesterday, I wrote a spelling of heavy as Heave. So you can guess very well. I was writing in sleep. So common errors and how to avoid them. Not observing the chats, archive mute. Last 2 months, the Readers Club 1.0 has gone through a major technological shift where I have experimented with WhatsApp communities. I wanted to experiment, and the best place was Readers 1.0. So far for me, it is at least midway between me exiting WhatsApp altogether and going to a new platform. It is giving me a midway for now. Let me tell you, all the platforms that I've explored are expensive. They are going to cost me 1.5 lakhs a year. And I don't want to go any cheaper substitute because, what is a cheaper substitute? If it doesn't work, then I have to go one more migration. So I'm going for the best, but best cost, a best price as well. So I'm keeping my, options open, whether I remain midway or I eventually get there. I know eventually I want to be in the best community there, where I can have a white label community. People can download the app and just join the Readers Academy, so to speak. So, but for now, if you're not observing the chats, if you've archived the groups, if you muted them, just like every other WhatsApp group, again, that's one of an error because You will miss on the regular chats because unfortunately, WhatsApp is a linear platform. And with a linear platform, you will not try to read 50 chats there. You'll try, just swipe right and you might unread them. Not asking questions or raising your challenges. If you think you're going to come into a session like this, which Aniket has organized after 2 weeks of difference, which he should have done maybe in May and now he's doing in June, and then waiting for your question to come or raising your challenge, you would have forgotten by then. Do not stand in your own way. If you are facing a problem, ask on the Readers 1.0. Not just Aniket, and anyone else will also jump in. So if you don't be an island, no one is an island. You are all on the same boat. And that boat has a big holes. And we are trying to sit on that hole so that the boat can be prevented from sinking. But suddenly it's sinking, it's sinking. Only when there are 2 or 3 people who are going to help you will you remain afloat. Think of this analogy the next time you think, I don't want to ask my question or raise my challenge. Because if you do ask it, you will find a way past it. And you will not have to wait for a session like this to happen towards a month end. Not powering up the starts and then fearing the mountain to climb. I have observed this. Readers who start a book strong are more likely to go all the way. Those who do not power up their start, they start 4 days later, then they have the mountain to climb. Their own memory and brain becomes their worst enemy. Suddenly, you have a backlog mindset. I have 4 chapters to read. Oh my God, Aniket has gone past 100 pages of rework in day 4. You have not even opened the book like rework. You don't even know that this 100 pages is technically a scam. This book just has one emoji, one visual, and then one empty page. Where a lot of pages empty. And you'll think, oh my God, 100 pages gone. My opportunity to read this book. Let me go to another book. If you don't power up your start, you'll always have a mountain to climb. And when you feel that fear, when you feel that pressure, as I said, reading will not happen. You would be like, let me read a book on my own. What is this GRP? Go hell with GRP. And not joining in the refresher sessions. So all of you who are joined in, I'm pretty certain that you would be energized, excited, motivated, inspired in your own ways. And for the next week or two, you will continue on a right path. And maybe you might need another refresher of a different kind when I will do another one in July. And I will continue doing these refresher sessions because it makes my deck get even better and better by including new things and deleting what did not put. So there are many common errors. I missed to note put all of them down because Afghanistan versus Australia took center stage. But you know what errors you are also making. Even in WhatsApp, the community mode, there are so many ways to join a particular group. Let me just show it on a screen. Readers Club right now has 5-6 groups. Okay, do not try to be in more groups than you should be. So GRP, just try to be in one book. Don't try to read many books. If you're reading fiction, just try to focus on fiction as well. Don't try to do too many things at once. If you have challenges, ask on the Readers 1.0. Announcements are just a group where it's one-way communication from my end. Okay. On the Readers Club 1.0, you can find this drop-down icon, click onto it, and you'll see other groups that you can be part of. Okay, just join in. I have also converted erstwhile path one into just Goodreads, where all the articles I can come up with, I'll just share it across just to complete my own loop. So you might occasionally see a football article as well because I just want to complete the loop and not just read for no good reason. Fight your brain. Your brain you think is your friend is not. It's your biggest enemy. For people, you might think, all the big creators on social media, I know one of them very, very personally. One thing they don't do is, overthink. They just don't think. They just make a content on 350 rupee or product or something. And that goes for million views. If I were in their shoes, I would overthink and say, who wants a 350 product? This will negate, nullify, dilute my image. I should be talking about big things. But brain has got an opportunity and a one up on you, and it will always have a one up on you. Fight it. Don't let overthinking be your worst enemy. So forget the backlog. We can, forget the backlog when it is articles, but with books, you will start feeling that there's so many stuff. In those scenarios, find your own pace. If you know Between X book and a Y book, I have always given 1 week of period, maybe 5 days, 7 days, maybe sometimes more than that. You have additional days to, complete along with the group. And if they've gone ahead, if Aniket has gone ahead, forget Aniket, forget the group. You're reading for yourself. Just use those portions as a pointer for you. Nowadays, we are doing the start of the book ritual, where in the start of the book ritual, one of the most important things to do is go to the table of contents and create your own index. And on that index, you're setting the date. Setting the date. I want to read on 21st June, 22nd June. If you miss 4 days and you set your own calendar, who's stopping you from setting your own calendars? No one. Forget the backlog because you're not even, powering up the start will never get you into the backlog mode. And if you have got a backlog mode, create your own table, calendar, deadline. When you create a deadline, the deadline effect has a powerful, way, a force. It's a force of nature which gets you to read. Pause your ad. So star frameworks, just me quickly go there. You know this very well. Share. Um, I will just highlight this portion, which is very crucial for what we are doing here. Discipline knows no boundaries, whether it's a professional sphere or the personal sphere. It's either there or it isn't. As an analogy, think of a tree. The visible, beautiful parts of a tree are its branches, leaves, and flowers, and one is tempted to water them. But its roots are the key. Without roots, there is no branch or flower. If you want your tree, if you want your habit tree to grow and blossom, you need to take care of the roots. This has been written by a cricket personality. Let me just share the name of the personality before others start dropping it. Sachin Tendulkar. The God has written a God statement there. And I've not shared it on social media. I'm trying to treasure it for some other day. And just I think I should share it on social media, at least on LinkedIn. Get my LinkedIn account back going when I have not been posting it. So share golden sentences, share it with your friends, share it in the readers group, share it in the GRP group you are part of, share. I'm not saying you to become a content creator all of a sudden overnight, or just share everything out there. Excess of everything is bad. Anything is bad. So uh, just whatever you found really connect with you, go ahead. Share with your friends, share with your family member, whosoever. Think every time you think you are going to go get better at it. So share, think, apply. Don't try to apply everything from a book because you won't be able to apply anything in that case. Apply one or two things core from book. So I was also trying to multitask, and every time I go across multitasking is a lie, I'm reminded of it. By the way, that is one thing as a book. And on the right, research. As I said, there is a research point for all of you, which is Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. So don't try to do research right then, because if you do that, your flow will be impacted and you might not get any other time to go back and reading. Just put an hour there and read it over the weekend. Read it when you're processing the book. So last but not least, I am overextended that. So let me just show this part, which is very crucial for you to understand. Scribbling, underlining, highlighting, and annotation. There are 4 stages of reading. Just like today, when you make a video, you just don't share it across. I do that because I don't want to do the other bits. But high quality videos do not come just like that. High quality videos by content creators, which is today ruling the world of uh, knowledge. They record the video, then they edit, and then they make it, fine tuned. They image filtering, the video filtering, and all the stuff, the cutting out of unnecessary r's and ums, and garbage statements that is not making any further context, slippage, tongue slips, and all of that. It gets removed. So what you end up getting is a refined processed video. Today, if you are a content creator, if you want to get into content creations, not processing your video is not an option. No one is going to watch it because the quality of content has gone so far up that half uncooked videos have no viewers. And I say this not as expert. I say this with my own experience of putting out unprocessed videos for readers themselves who barely watch it. So I know what it feels like, and because I've not done a good service to my readers by just throwing unprofessional video. That's the word, unprofessional reader. Your reading also needs to become professional. So while you're reading, you're doing your scribbling, you're doing your, writing on the margins, all that I've taught you, just like this star mechanism, putting on the side margins. But what do you do after it? When you're reading on a Kindle, you're already highlighting it. But when you're reading a physical book, I've told you not to read with the highlighter. This highlight and annotation, what you see here, this is annotation, okay? And highlights, of course, in the book arrives the way I've shown you a screenshot. Don't try to highlight when you're reading it because you're going to get stuck. Highlight and annotation is post reading. After the book has been completed, in the gap between one book to another, or even after the another book has started, over the weekends, you go back to the book you read, then you highlight. And that is when you are going to use this processing as a way to remind yourself as well. You can make your notes, you can do anything with it, and you can then have your own content ideas. So highlighting is post reading processing. Annotation, you will see on not every book. Only when a book is really nice for me, only when I know I'm going to go back to this for maybe content ideas, before maybe speech ideas or topic, or such refreshers, I will annotate. But if you see many of my books, they are not annotated. Again, there's no science to it. Do what really works best for you. Annotate and highlight only the books you really loved. Let rest of the books be unhighlighted. Let rest of the books be non-annotated. Okay. Annotations, that is why I've given you this activity for this weekend, okay? Because it is married to this session. Get yourself these highlighters, get yourself these fine tip permanent markers. I got 10 rupee ones because there were CD, DVD markers and no one was buying them. They were at discount. So I got these ones, at 10 rupee, believe it or not. Get your page markers. With page markers, try to get, plastic ones because then they won't get folded. They'll remain the way it is. I have used page markers, which are paper ones, and I just don't like them once they get crumbled. So my OCD nature, gets me to rework that. And why do you want to rework stuff? So personalize your book. We'll come to these parts in the next session where I'm going to show you how to use ReadWise or for that matter, your phone to highlight and digitize your, great stuff. But that is it for today. It's already 12:09. So I don't want to extend this further. This is it. People are dropping off anyhow. I'll just throw the floor open for any questions and let me know if this session helped you. Okay. If this session has helped you, motivated you, inspired you to not follow the grid, to not make the common mistakes, and to keep reading, irrespective of where the group is, to irrespective of where this GRP is. I'm open to any questions, any experience share, any 2 cents for this slide, this session altogether from any one of you. By the way, just 5. So the screenshot, I should just take a quick screenshot. So can you just take a quick moment to switch on a camera before there is just one person left, that is me. So Ginny also left. So all 3 of you remember 2 things to remind me at any point of time. 1, record the session. 2, take a screenshot before people have dropped off.
This
Okay.
was a very good session, Aniket. I had joined after a while, but I started reading more recently, and it has been a good experience so far. So I'm trying to follow the tips that you have shared in the group as well and in this meeting. So I have taken notes today. So I'm definitely going to use them for my reading journey. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Sadan.
the session.
Thanks, Sadan. And please don't mind my, going off the grid and, giving you my 2 cents on the rise
No,
cycling.
that is absolutely right, Aniket. I understand that your point of view and it makes sense as well. So I agree.
I'm always scared of cycling in Pune city. I I
Yeah.
just, maybe earlier I used to cycle across the city, but today I'm a very, very scared person. Maybe turning a father has made me a very fearful person. So you know, my cycle has got malfunctioned. The seat, the hook that keeps the seat intact, got broken off while I was cycling. And it's been a 1.5 and a half since then. I don't even wish to, repair it. Although I want to repair it. Best time to cycle in Pune has just come. Green city, cycling in the rain is, but this fear is very, very innate these days. I was not so fearful in the past, but becoming a father has changed me there. So this comes from personal concern as well, this fearful mindset. But to do what best works best for you. Don't be like Aniket. Fear nearly doesn't really get you anywhere in life.
True. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for hanging in there, and thank you, Puneet, for joining in. 2 days ago, I remember I was going through all the photographs I have in my phone, so it had that memory of Bangalore meetup, the only in-person meetup I have had with my readers. So very, very
Thought
disappointed.
so.
But slowly and steadily, I'll do a Pune meetup and a Mumbai meetup, and then a Bangalore meetup as well. Hopefully, Delhi meetup will also arrive. Let me work there. I'll keep.
I don't understand why you are dealing on Pune meetup, Aniket.
Hare Sadananda, it's a lot of hard work. Also, because this, let me just stop recording this.